Most closers who are stuck at 5, 10, or 15,000 in commissions per month and who are struggling to hit that next milestone, they think they need to upgrade their skill set to start closing more deals. But what I've seen firsthand at our sales agency at onecallclosers.com, where we manage over 500 high-ticket sales reps, is that the top 1% aren't drastically better than everybody else. But instead, they just know how to reprogram their mind for bigger commission checks. And so in this video, I'm gonna give you 3 actionable steps you can take to do just that. Step number 1 is awareness. I remember when I first got into sales, it was in 2017, never sold anything in my life. And I got hired for a job. I thought it was a marketing job. Well, they put me on the sales floor. Just like everybody, guys, I sucked at sales. My first month in sales was horrific, right? I didn't know how to close. I didn't know what to say. I wasn't sure what to do when the prospect said. I had to think about it. But this is what I can tell you. About 6 to 8 months into sales, I actually started making money. But I noticed that my income was very sporadic. Some months I would make, 6, 7,000 in commission. And then some months I would make 13 or 14,000 in commission. And one day I sat down and I looked at my past months in commission and I realized, Rich, yeah, some months you're doing 13 to 14, some months you're doing 6 to 8, but my average commission month was about 8 to 10,000 a month. And I remember sitting there and contemplating, why am I not doing more in sales? Because at the time, I was very in the game, right? I was reading the books, I was mastering my skill set, I was going to trainings, I was doing role plays, and I remember thinking like, man, if I could just upgrade my skill set, I'm gonna start making more money. But what actually happened was none of that. I started, learning persuasion, how to influence people, how to use psychology, how to do, better scripting and learn the frameworks of like how to overcome objections. But I quickly realized that wasn't helping me make more money until I read a book called The Big Leap. And if you haven't read this book, I would highly recommend it because in this book, he talks about how people have an imaginary limiter over their life that keeps them stuck. And these limiters are everywhere. They're on your income, they're on your relationships, there's even limiters on how much happiness that you can experience in life. And so what this book talked about was that if you do not learn how to overcome these limiters in your life, you will hit the limiter and then you'll self-sabotage your success. And as soon as I learned that word self-sabotage, I said, that makes a lot of sense because I was making a $13,000, $14,000 month, which meant I had the skills to do it. But then the next month I was doing like 6 to 7. And so that self-sabotaging cycle was very evident in my life. And that's when I knew, dude, there's something that you need to change internally in order to go to the next level. And this is the first step to reprogramming your mind for bigger commission checks, awareness. Until you become consciously aware of your subconscious programming, you will act in accordance with this limiting programming. And every single day, it will produce the same mediocre results that you don't want. Skills in sales, guys, is fantastic. You should develop your skill set. But realize this, that skills alone won't make you an elite closer. Because just like a computer, and I used to be a gamer growing up, I don't know if you guys used to play games, but one game that I was absolutely addicted to was a game called World of Warcraft. And in this game, you needed a very good computer because it would take a lot of your hardware and bandwidth to play this game. It wasn't until I upgraded my computer that I was actually able to play the game the way the game was supposed to be played. And once I upgraded my computer, it was like, oh my gosh, my guy started leveling up more. I started getting, battle passes and badges and started, defeating more monsters. And it's the same with your operating system as a closer. You can develop the skills, but great skills on an old hard drive, on an old identity, on an old belief system will not produce results, guys. So the next step in your journey, if you feel like this right now, is to take a look at your hardware and say, wait a minute, I might need to upgrade this computer. I might have to get a new hard drive, right? And as soon as you get the better computer in place, now you add that same skill set on top of a better operating system, and then voila, a lot more abundance started flowing into my life. The reason why is because as humans, we act in accordance with who we believe we are. If you think you're a disciplined person, you'll act with discipline. If you think you're the type of person who goes to the gym, you will go to the gym. If you think you're the type of person who makes $50,000 per month in commissions, with time, you'll adjust to making that level of income and you won't settle for anything less. Change your beliefs, you'll change your thoughts. Change your thoughts and you'll change your actions. Change your actions and you'll change your life. And in step 3, guys, I'm gonna show you how to do that using a specific strategy that almost all the best closers I know use on a regular basis. But firstly, how do you become aware of these beliefs? And it's actually quite simple, guys. So I took out a piece of paper and I started writing down all the beliefs that I had in my life. So I thought of every subject. I thought about, what are my beliefs around money? What are my beliefs around sales? What are my beliefs around God? What are my beliefs around marriage? What are my beliefs around career opportunities? And I took the time, guys, to write down all of my beliefs. And then what I did is after I wrote down each belief, I reviewed it. And I said, what belief is not serving me? Because we all have beliefs in our life that serve our higher purpose, that serve where we want to go. And then we have beliefs that are holding us back. And what I realized in that little short exercise is that I had about 3 beliefs around money that were not good. And I came from a family where money was very scarce, right? It was save driven. It wasn't about making more income. It was about saving every penny of your income. 3 money beliefs that I held at the time was that money required very, very hard work to make. I also had the belief that money was very hard to come by. And so then I made it hard on myself. And the third belief around money is that I felt people with money had something different, right? They were born to have money. It wasn't just like you could make the amount of money you wanted. It was like, no, you had to be born a certain way with a certain skill set. And if you weren't born that way, you couldn't have the money. But just becoming aware of this, guys, won't get you far. You need step number 2, which is setting a new identity. So at this point, you should be aware of your current identity, and chances are it's not in alignment with what you want to achieve. So let's set a new identity together. And the best way I can explain this, guys, is I found another gentleman in my journey named Jim Fortin, and he talked about the process of resetting your identity as a human. And what he talked about was a be, do, have model of life. He said, Rich, you first need to be the type of person to do the type of things, to have the things that you want in life. See, up until this point of learning the be, do, have model of life, I was operating the have, do, be. It was way different. The have, do, be model is most people, which means I need something in order to do something to be somebody. So it's like, I need more money before I can start the business. I need to have a certain family line in order to be rich. I need to have this resource before I can do X. And guys, he flipped that on its head and said, no. The first thing you need to do is you need to decide who you want to become. If you're watching this right now, an action step that you can do on a piece of paper, write down be, do, have, and under B, describe who you want to be. Like, who are you going to operate as? Are you going to operate as somebody that just takes action, that does whatever it takes, that is committed to hitting new levels of income? Are you committed to being that person? Because as soon as you write it down, guys, and then you start reading it, you start reinforcing who you are going to be. And if you adopt that identity of that person, guess what? Your actions, which is the next step, is the do column. Your actions naturally start backing up who you want to become. And so this model completely revolutionized my life because I realized the only and the most important step is deciding who I wanted to become, and the next 2 come after it, right? So if I want to be a person that just takes action, that gets after it, that is willing to do whatever it takes, and is going to make new levels of income, I start operating like this person naturally. So now as I'm acquiring skill sets and I'm acquiring tactics and strategies, I can actually implement them at a very high level because I'm operating as a new person. And as I take those new actions, I get the outcomes that this person will get. To reiterate, write down a piece of paper. Be, do, have, do that little exercise and watch as things start changing in your life. Because as humans, we do not achieve goals. We achieve new identities and beliefs, and then we translate that into new results. How do you become this new person? You need to reinforce your new identity like your goals depend on it, because they do, which leads me into step number 3, guys, which is reinforcing that identity. As soon as I became aware of my limiting identity and owned my new identity, this allowed me to start taking the actions that I wanted to take in life. And I'll never forget this, guys. Like every morning I used to work at a place called Fit Body Boot Camp, and I was doing sales. And I remember learning this be, do, have model. And so I would go to the gym at about 4:30 a.m. and then I would get into the car at about 5:30. I would drive to Fit Body Boot Camp. So I turned my car into a university, and I was like listening to Tony Robbins on autopilot. And then I would get to Fit Body Boot Camp headquarters, usually at about 7 a.m. And I would start work at about 8. And so what I did to just start reinforcing this identity, that whole be, do, have sheet that I had, I would start walking around the parking lot and I would start affirming to myself who I wanted to become. And a lot of people are going to say, oh, Rich, this is woo woo, or Rich, I've tried this before, or Rich, I've read books like this. But there's a big difference, guys, between reading books and saying, I tried this before and this didn't work for me, to staying committed to it. Because for a year straight, guys, this is what I did. Okay. I got to the gym early. I got to Fit Body Boot Camp early. I walked around the parking lot and I would literally say out loud who I wanted to become. And another way you could say this are affirmations, but I wrote it down and I did it every day continually. And that's called commitment, guys. I was committed to getting to where I wanted to go because I knew that unless I did this, I was always going to have this limiter in my life that was holding me down. And then I'll tell you this, what started happening, right? Now, it didn't happen overnight. But as I kept reinforcing this identity, the things in my life started changing. I started taking new actions. I started realizing new things that I wasn't doing before in my sales career. Another thing that I spotted, guys, is that I wasn't taking sales seriously. I was winging it on my calls. See, I started listening to books and I started upgrading my skill sets. So I thought, because I was taking in new information, I was watching podcasts. But what I noticed is I didn't have a clear framework that I had written down that I was following on every call. Every call was different. Some calls I was bringing more energy than others. Some calls I was saying something different than the other calls. And so what I realized is that I wasn't a pro. I wasn't out there trying to be a super efficient with my calls. I was winging it on my calls. And why was I winging it? Well, it was because I hadn't reinforced this new identity in my life, which said, I'm going to do whatever it takes to get this level of income. I'm going to work hard. I'm going to achieve success and I'm going to go after my goals. That was the type of person I was. And so naturally, guys, I started taking sales more seriously. I started following up with prospects and the income didn't start affecting my behaviors because now my level of identity was not at an $8,000 to $10,000 level. I was starting to get to that $20,000 level identity and my income was rising to it. And that's the power, guys, of reinforcing this new identity in your life. And what I noticed is it's usually in multiples of 3. So for example, if you're making about $10,000 a month right now, there's a limiter you're going to hit. And then as soon as you reinforce a new identity, you go to $20,000, $30,000 a month, right? And then once you hit $30,000 a month of income, you hit another limiter in your life. You have to break past it and then you can go in multiples of 3. And I've done this multiple times in my life, guys. And every time I go through the same process. And so that's how you reprogram your mind, guys, your subconscious for bigger commission checks. Now, if you want to do the math to figure out exactly what actions you need to take right now to achieve your commission goal, just click on the video anywhere on the screen, guys, and I'll explain exactly how to do that.